Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's CUGC user share. My name is Stephanie Boozer. Today we're going to be talking about deploying XenApp XenDesktop to Amazon AWS and Microsoft Azure with Workspace Cloud Lifecycle Management. Our format today is, hold on, we have about 45 minutes of presentation, and we will have a 15-minute period of question and answer immediately following. If we could get you guys to type your questions into the question area of the GoToWebinar panel, we will take a look at those and answer them after the presentation. I'd like to thank the Charlotte CUGC local group for presenting this for us today. We have with us on the line Bob Baer, John Bulanda, and Andy Whiteside, the local leaders. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy to introduce our presenters and get us going.
Hey, thanks, Stephanie. Hey, glad you guys could join us. Really excited about this. This is a topic that I don't know enough on. I need to know enough, and I think it's changing, and we need to all kind of get our head around it and continue to stay focused on trying to figure out where this public cloud infrastructure applies to the end-user computing world. Stephanie, just to correct one thing that you said, we want this to be a conversation with this group. It's being facilitated by the Charlotte group, but we want everybody who's involved, everybody who's online here, to feel like you're part of the conversation. So myself and Bob Baer, who's one of the other folks that you see in the webcams there. Bob is one of the co-leaders in Charlotte with me, and we're gonna spur some questions. We're gonna spur some conversations. But as you have questions, please put them into the chat window. And what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna try to address those and ask those questions for you of our presenters, so that you're not hanging around at the end trying to find out some of your questions. We're going to try to ask those questions along the way, and we may end up running out of time, but that's okay, because the idea is to get you guys some of this knowledge that you're looking for. And if we have to reconvene, and we'll do this again, we'll do part 2 some other time, and continue with the presentation and ask and answer some more questions. So on that note, I got Bob with me. How's it going, Bob?
It's going good, Andy. Yeah, I just introduced myself. I'm Bob Baer. I work at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, actually the fastest growing university in the UNC system with about 27,000 students. We are at our infrastructure is XenApp XenDesktop 7.6, serving up both faculty, staff, and expanding it to more and more students. So obviously, a lot of this stuff that we're going to be talking about today is right down the direction where we're going to be going, because as we bring on more and more students, we're going to need more and more space, and this is going to be I'm really interested in what Eduardo has to say.
So Bob is the capital D Citrix Administrator at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Bob, I bet there's a lot of people on the phone that can relate to being the Citrix guy at their organization, right? The only one, or the main one, the primary one?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have. I always ask around as to what your support group is, and I'm always impressed when someone has more than one. Yeah. I'm actually we're starting to bring up one of the guys here, starting to bring him online, and so I'll actually have a backup, and that'll be a cool thing after about 10 or 11 years. So we're that's that seems to be the way it is in our environment.
Same story, different place. So, and I'm sure somewhere in the last 2 years, someone has come in and talked to you about public cloud, either Azure or AWS, right? And you guys obviously have to be interested in that space.
Yeah, especially since a lot of the other things that we do are moving to the cloud. Our local storage for most of file storage is going to be moving to the cloud. We already do a lot of stuff in Google with that, and going to Dropbox. So we're already moving a lot of stuff there. So this is just another piece.
So that's something, a good segue to introduce Eduardo and Jarian Gibson. So, guys, let's start with Jarian. Let's start with you. Give us a little background on yourself. Why are you in this space? How is Jarian, which I think a lot of people probably already know you, but where do you fit in the world of end-user computing?
So I pretty much, do everything on the end-user computing side, from virtual desktops and applications to enterprise mobility to combine the two together. So I've been working with Citrix, since MetaFrame 1.8, and then doing deployments with other vendors as well, but I've been doing a lot more on the cloud and a little bit of the mobility side more recently. So I pretty much do everything, from design, assessment, implementation for both of those.
How many implementations have you done in Azure or AWS at this point? And don't, just so everybody knows, it's not going to be hundreds, right? If we're lucky, it's 5, 6, 10. It is a new and upcoming space. How many have you done, Jarian?
Probably a handful POC style. That's about it for now. I know with most of my customers, they've been looking at Azure. And I know up until last year at Synergy, the NetScaler piece was kind of missing in Azure, but it's there now. But there's getting more and more interest in going to the cloud and either using it as a primary, a DR, or as a burst mechanism.
So let's level set on that conversation, because the idea here is, right, we want to be all about Citrix, we want to be all about Azure, we want to talk about AWS, we want to promote those technologies. But if I understand what you just said, is you've done a handful of POCs in those technologies, but as far as real-world production rollouts, where people are today using an implementation that you did in AWS or Azure or AWS, what's the number of those production implementations for you as of today?
I can probably think of maybe one production of doing this type of install today for it. They're using production Azure and 365 for other things, but as far as like apps and desktops, it's very little right now. There's a lot of interest in testing, but I haven't done a lot with people going full on. As far as cloud deployments, most of mine have been on the mobility side. A lot of those, but on the apps and desktops, very few.
That's interesting. I mean, kind of what you're underscoring there is we're all kind of in the same boat, but we're all in it together, and we got you two guys here as experts to help the rest of us get a little bit of a jump start that, unfortunately, you guys had to go learn the hard way some of the challenges, and now you're going to share with us some of those challenges, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, Eduardo Molina, how's it going?
Pretty good yourself, Andy. How are you?
Good. So how did you end up being Jarian's partner in crime on this?
We get to talk, we get to drink some beer and see Jarian holding a bowl of wine and drinking out of it, and I'm like, hey, this looks like a nice dude that I can probably hang out with. I don't know if I can drink as much as him, though. And that's why we started thinking and talking about a few sessions that we wanted to together, and, we came up with this one out of both needs of POCs and getting involved really early with CWC and CLM. I have been doing Citrix a little bit since 2000. Basically, MetaFrame XP was my first production implementation, and I've been on the customer side for 15 years, and last couple of years on the consulting side. So I have seen it from both sides, and from our AWS, Microsoft Azure implementations, I have same with Jarian, handful of POCs, people really looking into it. My case has been actually more on the AWS side of the house, but Microsoft is being very aggressive, throwing what they call credits. If you have an ELA and stuff like that, to go that route. But most of my POCs have been with AWS, but there's still big questions about licensing, especially for the desktop side. That Microsoft licensing, let's fix VDI type of thing is not going away, and that's part of what I have talked to the customers and what they have been a little cautious about is, okay, I can put it on the cloud, but is my licensing changing?
So, hey, Eduardo, real quick, the way you just held the phone up to your face just now made a huge difference, so try to keep it up.
No.
That was great. Yeah, you're night and day difference. So I guess you were almost what I always do, almost steal my own thunder. So it sounds like you guys have a lot to tell us. So I guess we're going to give control of the presentation over to Eduardo, and he and Jarian are going to tackle the content. And again, we encourage everyone to ask your questions in the chat room, and we're going to try to interrupt as appropriate and try to get some of your questions answered as they go through the content. So let's make this a conversation, not just a presentation.
Fantastic. Can you guys see my screen?
I do not see it yet.
Not yet.
Oh.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
There we go.
Well, I guess we already went over the presentations, guys, and let's get right into it. So what is Workspace Cloud? And basically, the concept is pretty nice. It's a concept that's been around for probably 3 years. I've been personally playing with it on the different, offerings of Workspace Cloud for a year and a half, 2 years into it. It's the idea of make something that is repeatable, that is fast to integrate, that we can make it simple by doing wizard-based. Everybody knows how to use a web browser today. We don't want to install a bunch of tools on anybody's computers. And now with, adoption of tablets on organizations and adoptions of Macs, you can now run MMCs for everything. So it's a simple way of doing it, and also flexible because, we can go from doing it on-prem to fully do it everything in, on the cloud, whether that's public cloud or private cloud. It's a way of for us to basically present information to the customers wherever they are. We're basically, if you guys think about it, today what we have is our own on-prem or private clouds.
Eduardo,
yeah.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Can you just give a brief overview around? So we're talking about Citrix Workspace Cloud at this moment, which is what?
It is a service. It's a management service, and that's what we're actually getting into this specific slide. Today everybody has a XenApp or a XenDesktop environment where you have your management on your on-prem, on your private clouds, DR environments, and then you have your workloads. And those workloads can be, a XenApp server running 7.6 or 7.8. It can be your XenApp, your XenDesktop VDIs. And you have a management for all of that. And then, until 7.8, we didn't have a way of doing DR and doing zones back the way we did it on 6.5. So most of us, what we did is we had, individual farms all over the place. So
Eduardo, one other comment real quick. I don't know if you realize this or not, but the screen that you're sharing is actually your presenter slide.
The notes. No, I did not.
Yeah, I just noticed that too. Yeah, it's your presenter slide, not the actual.
Let me see. Let me see. It does change that. I did not realize that. So let me.
Yeah, that looks
try that.
You had it right there.
Oh, I had it right there.
Yes.
Yeah, you had it before.
Yes,
yeah, it was full screen.
Okay, is this now?
One?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Fantastic.
Yeah, that note you had on there about doing all the work and Jarian not doing any of the work, we saw that at the bottom of the screen. You might want to hide that.
That's definitely not true. I mean, we spent a few hours on this, and we couldn't make it without each other, I will say. And then now recently we have moved into public clouds, and we want to make sure that we can manage them all. So the cloud service, the Citrix Workspace Cloud is basically a service that is provided by Citrix that will take all that management that is currently distributed around all over the place and make it into a single one that will connect to whatever cloud you have, whether that's a public cloud like AWS or a cloud platform, that is provided by a cloud host provider, or your on-prem. So that's the biggest change is you're taking your management, your storefronts, your delivery controllers, all that information is going there, and now it's going to be moved and be managed, centralized from the Citrix Workspace Cloud. So it's a service, it's a cloud-based service that the users, administrators will be able to take advantage of, and will connect to resources that can be anywhere. On the presentation today, we're going to show you things that we're doing on AWS. Due to time, we definitely cannot show you AWS and Windows Azure, but we have tested both. We have done both, and then we're going to talk about, things that will work out of the box and things that will not work out of the box. So we're basically simplifying everybody's. Yes, sir.
You're probably going to get into this, right? But so what you just said was Citrix Workspace Cloud can integrate with Azure, or it can integrate with AWS. And we have a question in the chat room already, or in the questions panel. Workspace Cloud, is it hosted in Azure or AWS? One or the other, or both these days? I know it was AWS originally. Where is it? Is it both these days, or just one?
I believe it's both now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I believe the control plane is hosted in both now. And just to add one more thing about the control plane as well is that when we talk about taking that management, and Eduardo mentioned, storefront, the controllers, etc. One of the biggest benefits is going to be the SQL database piece, because a lot of on-prem deployments was XenDesktop, and the change from IMA to FMA, and where in IMA we had localhost cache, and that's kind of gone. In FMA we have connection releasing, but it's not a full replacement. The database piece, when you're in XenDesktop, XenApp, 7.x and above, is very important, because if it goes down and you don't have connection leasing, you're not going to be able to get access. If you have connection leasing and have a lease, you'll be able to get access, but that's not going to work for everybody. So it's not a direct replacement for localhost cache, but the benefit of taking this the Workspace cloud and using that control plane in the cloud is that whole conversation around SQL redundancy, clustering, always on availability groups, mirroring, the different options we have for SQL. That conversation and that price can kind of go away with this now being also hosted as part of that management control plane in Workspace Cloud.
Okay, so along those lines,
I definitely. Sorry, Andy, I definitely can confirm that it runs on both AWS and Microsoft Azure clouds.
So if I'm a
and
customer,
one of the questions that someone had made, sorry, Andy, one of the other points that someone had mentioned is the control plane is hosted in Azure and the DDCs are in AWS. Is that true?
I think the workloads are shared. Most of the workloads are in Azure, especially taking advantage of the Microsoft licensing. I don't think there's a division between those that I'm aware of. Jarian, are you aware of the division?
I know they do hosting in both. I'm not 100% specific on the details of what's where and what's where, but I thought both could live in either or, from what I understood.
Okay, so
could be wrong.
Let's try to clarify the question. So the question is the control plane, the XenDesktop controllers, the storefronts, those pieces can live in Azure and integrate with other clouds, including your own private cloud, or it can live in AWS. If I'm a customer, how do I pick? Do I just tell Citrix which control plane, which cloud I want my control plane in? Is that how it works?
Yeah, correct. So when you set up Workspace Cloud, what you do is you have the control plane already set up. So what you do is take what's called the connector and install that somewhere and be able to manage and connect those resources. Now, the piece about that is going to be you get to pick where that goes. You tell Citrix where you want to put it. So if you're using Azure, you can say, okay, I'm going to put this in my Azure using my subscription for Azure. If I'm doing AWS, I'm going to put in AWS. If I have on-prem and want to use my on-prem resources like Hyper-V, VMware, XenServer, I'm going to install that connector on-prem and then have those resources hosted locally. So you get to choose where you put those. There's no really, you have to put it here or there. It really says as a customer, it's kind of bring your own workload infrastructure, whether that's on-prem or any cloud.
I guess, Andy, to also tag into that, does it really matter for the customer? If you are a shared file customer, or if you are a Spotify customer, does it really matter where you're getting it from? If you're getting it, it might be important for some people, but it's a service, right? And you're consuming it as a service from Citrix.
Yes, your point is it's a service, and as long as it works and it's fast and performs, you shouldn't really care. I'm sure there are some people that are hung up on AWS versus Azure, and they're going to want to dictate which one it's in. But you're right. If it's, as long as it does what it's supposed to do, nobody should really care, right? And that's the control plane. Now, the desktops and your storage and all that stuff, that gets to go, as Jarian was pointing out, anywhere you want to put it, because the controller, the studio can integrate with all those different public types of cloud.
Correct, and as you can see on this image, basically on this slide, what we're describing is, what services are running on the Citrix operated and architected solution, which is what we're calling the control plane. So the top part of it, is the applications and desktop services, the mobility management services, your shared documents, your lifecycle management, which we're going to get really deep into today. That's what is controlled by Citrix. Citrix is in charge of distributing, updating it, maintaining it, designing it. And then, a small cloud connector server gets deployed to your resource, to be next to your resources, and that's the interface between the Citrix control plane and whatever your resources are, whether that's your own data center or now, workspace pod or, service provider cloud or, AWS or Azure.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Cool. So, kind of to dig a little bit deeper on this, it's the part that we're looking here. Yeah, today, I have my studio, I have my director, I have my licensing server, the SQL server that you have to have, highly available, whether that's always on or principal mirrored witness. You have to provide availability because how dependent FMA is on SQL. You have your delivery controllers and you have your front servers and all your resources. So today, everything is managed by you. Everything needs to be patched by you, the customer, or if you're paying somebody to do it, that person is spending cycles on doing that management. And quite honestly, once you have your storefront set up and you have it customized with your pretty pictures and pretty colors, how often do you go there and you change the storefront? Other than test patching and maybe an upgrade every once a year or maybe every 2 years, I do know people are still running, web interface on the production environment, so maybe not even that often, right? So what Citrix proposes is, okay, let me take all that top part, let me take the studio, the delivery controllers, the licensing server, because this is a service. This is a hosted subscription. Therefore, you're paying for a monthly fee, and we'll talk a little bit at the end of this. But that control plane, it integrates your studio, your director, your SQL, your delivery controllers, on what is Citrix Workspace Cloud. It's operated by Citrix. It's a service. It's a subscription level, and you get to keep your resources whatever you want them, and that's what we call a resource location. Whether that's a resource on-prem, your data center, 4 walls, the basement of my house in my case, or if it's AWS. So that's where the division is going. Is the top part is now controlled and managed by Citrix, or at least that's their offering. While we get to control our IP, we get to control our resources and allocations.
Yeah, that's a great slide. That's the best slide I've ever seen that helps explain that, and hopefully people are following that. But the infrastructure pieces, including SQL and Studio and Director, License Server, all that stuff is in the cloud, AWS for sure, and possibly Azure, and managed or maintained by Citrix. But yet you as the admin still have the right to go in there and control your Citrix settings. But they make sure it's up and available and up to a certain level of code version, right?
That is correct. That is definitely correct. And people might be thinking now, sorry, Andy, people might be thinking about how secure is that cloud connector, and that's why we have this slide. And Jarian, you want to talk about this one, what is actually happening in that communication and how things are secured.
Yeah, so
I'm really curious about that cloud connector, and that's the magical part that until I saw it, I didn't understand. And I think that's the part that's got people, they're confused. Do I have a VPN connection up to AWS? So Jarian, yeah, absolutely. Let's go through that.
So the main piece for Workspace Cloud is the cloud connector, and basically it's a little proxy piece or a little MSIP service that you install on a Windows machine in your environment. It can be multiple for redundancy, but the main thing what it does is that's going to bridge your on-prem infrastructure into Workspace Cloud. That way you can enumerate users, your Active Directory. Your VDAs can register. If for some reason you want to put Storefront or NetScaler or even Director on-prem and just have other pieces in the cloud for the control plane, you can do that too as well. Your connection from your hypervisor into XenApp XenDesktop, that's going to flow through that connector as well, but all of it is outbound traffic 443 to the cloud. Citrix does have a security document that we'll have to post later on with this so people can actually read the full security details. But the main thing about the connector is that it's evergreen. It's always going to update. They'll seed out the updates to a handful first, make sure the updates go okay to the cloud connector, and then they'll push that out to everyone else. The main thing is that it's kind of self-updating, and it's going to basically be evergreen. And what evergreen means is that the actual connector up to the Workspace Cloud will always be up to date, along with everything in the control plane as well will always be up to date as well. So you don't have to keep worrying about the patch cycles, the releases, those typical things we worry about for maintenance on a typical on-prem deployment. Now, anything you deploy on-prem, the VDAs, Storefront, Director, even NetScaler, all that stuff you'll still have to maintain like you traditionally do. But anything hosted in Workspace Cloud along with the connector is always going to be evergreen and updated through Workspace Cloud. Now, again, go ahead.
Well, there's a couple of questions that have come in, which I think we probably need to address. Eduardo, can you go back to your architectural slide?
Sure.
I bet there's a couple people that are asking this question. So, Jarian, when it comes to the control plane, and let's say I'm working with AWS, not only do I get to pick it, obviously, to go in AWS, but do I get to pick which zones within AWS that thing lives in, or am I at the mercy of where the zone Citrix put it in?
No. So if you're using AWS or Azure, you're able to pick where that lives in based on, say if you're in Europe, you want it deployed in Europe, it can be deployed there, Asia, etc. You pick the zone that it goes into based on your subscription.
Okay, so that's for the control plane. And obviously for my resource area where I'm going to actually make my VDAs available from, that's all within my control, right? I pick the zones that I have set up for my company and integrate it with the controller, and that's how that's how we end up in the appropriate zone or data center that needs to be if we're integrating with Workspace Cloud.
Correct. So that could be your current on-prem deployment. That could be if you have multiple locations across your company. So your multi location company, you have a resource location per location. So you get to pick anywhere those workers go, whether it's on your infrastructure, in the cloud, in a hosted environment, etc. The main thing is having that connector to be able to bridge that connection between the VDA and the control plane.
Yeah, that connector, so in my head of Citrix terminology, and I know this isn't exactly right, but I look at that connector as being a multi-directional micro VPN tunnel.
Actually not, because the whole communication at the end is going to be dependent on your net scaler. What that cloud connector is more like is like an STA.
I was just generalizing the comment, but
yeah,
it functions. It allows the traffic to go both ways between those two environments, right?
Mm-hmm. But more like a delivery controller or an STA will do, more than actually a VPN device. So if you familiar with the delivery controller STA role, the cloud connector has more of that role.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense in the terms of in a Citrix world. So yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to interrupt your conference, the flow of the presentation, but somebody asked about the zones, and I thought it was important that we addressed that while we had the architectural slide up. Let's keep going.
So basically, what I was saying is, so all that information between bridging from your on-prem or your cloud, wherever you have those pieces set up to talk to Workspace Cloud, it's all going to be encrypted. So there's going to be no kind of data leakage. All your machine images, your actual application data is always going to stay in that resource location, whether it's on-prem or you're deploying to somewhere else. And again, it's only storing those metadata pieces and so forth, so you're not actually taking any of your customer data and moving that into the control plane. It will do things like talk to your hypervisors and enumerate user credentials so you can assign resources out to it, but nothing is going to be going from your on-prem data-wise up into the Workspace Cloud control plane.
So companies that have a mandate that no public cloud for their data, right? They're not out of the mix here. They could still do Workspace Cloud because no data is actually living in the cloud other than the metadata associated with the XenDesktop configuration, right?
And correct. And right now we're mostly kind of focusing on apps and desktops, but say if they did like the share file piece of Workspace Cloud, the secure data piece, just like what your share file is today, you can still have your storage zones on-prem, so your data always stays on-prem, and that way you can still follow that mandate of no data in the cloud.
Okay, yeah, great. So I hate to do this to you guys, but there's like 5 or 6 questions that have come in that, if you're okay, we'll hit them real quick, and then we'll move on to the next part of the presentation.
Sure.
What's the current version of Workspace Cloud based on? 7.6, 7.7, 7.8?
So it should be on 7.8. So typically with Workspace Cloud, since it's always going to be evergreen, that it's always going to be up to date with the latest features. And you'll see features come into Workspace Cloud before you'll see them trickle down to traditional on-prem and the regular media you download for your XenApp XenDesktop on-prem deployment. So it's always going to be the latest and greatest because with the cloud, and the biggest benefit is that it's evergreen, so they're constantly updating that, constantly adding new features, and that takes off that whole maintenance cycle off of the admin resources and traditional deployments because you're having to go through into your patches and validate and your change management windows and all that kind of stuff, where with the Workspace Cloud control plane, that huge benefit is they're doing it for you. They're already doing all that testing. They're maintaining that. They can roll it back if they find a problem, and so it's always evergreen inside that environment.
What is my level as a customer of control over that upgrade? Do I get to approve the upgrade, or is it just happening whether I want it or not?
It really just happens whether or not. I know there's been some feedback since the inception of this about is there any control? The biggest piece would be my concern will be the Workspace Cloud connector because if I have any kind of change management for anything installed in my data center, am I going to get some kind of notification? Am I going to say, hey, I have to click whatever and say, okay, you have to update this within 2 weeks, before we're automatically updated, or within that 2-week window, you can update at your leisure. So there's been some back and forth talk about that kind of thing. But as far as the actual control plane goes, that's always going to be updated. You really don't have control of that. But before that gets mass updated to everyone, they do certain pieces first to make sure it's tested and working fine before they do a wide-scale upgrade to everyone inside of Workspace Cloud.
And the other thing, Andy, is that they guarantee that whatever control plane is running, whatever version is running, and they don't actually advertise the version, is going to be compatible with all current supported versions of XenApp and XenDesktop. Obviously, it has to be FMA, but if it's supported by, the support agreement, it will be supported through the Workspace Cloud service.
Okay, and then somebody asked, I can't wait to hear you guys answer this one. What if my workspace control plane is down?
So typically with the workspace control plane, really not going to see that go down because they have built-in redundancy and stuff for that. The biggest piece would be what happens if my connection from on-prem to Workspace Cloud goes down, right? Mm-hmm. So say I drop an internet connection, something like that, you would still have the same problems you would have today if your internet went down and you had remote workers. Now, it'd be more impactful with the cloud connector because you couldn't be able to launch sessions if the control plane was down. And that's something that has been given as feedback as well, and something to look at improving going forward with inside of Workspace Cloud also.
So yeah, but as you can see here, if your control plane goes down, Andy, you don't even have a storefront to log into. So there's anywhere where that browser to click or anywhere for that thin client to actually consume resources because storefront is not there to serve them out. So yes, if your control cloud goes down, you will be down.
So Eduardo, so you're saying that how this is showing on this slide right here, this is the only way really this can be configured. You can't configure this any differently, like having the storefront local or the SQL local at all. This is the way it's going to be.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, Jarian. I mean, you guys commented this, but it's my understanding that if you really wanted to, you could put your storefront on-prem, and you could potentially get a NetScaler like out in AWS. You could kind of shift this around a little bit, but the main piece is the control plane. The majority of it, the controller and the SQL database is going to be in the cloud, and you connect to whatever local resource or whatever resource location you want. But can't you put the storefront, if you wanted to, in the local resource as well?
Yeah, so you could put storefront, you could put director. I know with some things, especially with I've been looking at saying is like we have different integrations we do with Director or we customize Director. Well, today that's not available with the Workspace Cloud hosted version. So say if you want to integrate HDX Insight in Director or session recording or do anything with that new custom plugin model or SCOM or things like that, you can't do that today with Director hosted in Workspace Cloud. So you could then deploy Director on-prem and still point back to it and for those type of things. So it depends. Yes, you can take any parts of what's hosted in the control plane and deploy on-prem, or you can have it all hosted in the control plane. It's up to you. You have that flexibility.
So that's a good question.
So I have looked into that, and it kind of defeats the purpose of a service, right? Because now you're not consuming a service. You're now going back to be responsible for that storefront server. You're now going to be back responsible for that delivery controller. So you're not taking advantage of the evergreen environment. You're not taking advantage of somebody else managing my control plane for me. At that point, you might want to look into just using the CLM to do the deployment of the tools, but you still want to keep control of the different places of the control plane.
Yeah, the one thing I wouldn't do is I would always leave the delivery controllers and the SQL piece. If you're going to subscribe to Workspace Cloud, that's always going to be there. You wouldn't deploy SQL locally. You wouldn't deploy delivery controllers locally on-prem. Now, like I said before, you could do Director, you could do Storefront, you could do NetScaler, depending on your environment and what you need to do. But if you're going to subscribe to Workspace Cloud, you're always going to have those controllers and SQL in the cloud because that's the biggest benefit right there, especially with the SQL piece, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Hey, so just a quick check on time. We're about 35 minutes into the 45, and I'll go as long as you guys have time for. So, again, we'll come back. I mean, the idea here is to get a bunch of questions answered and get people educated. So if we get through, a third of the content, we'll schedule another time and we'll keep going from there. But so one quick comment on that: the stuff you put on-prem, you are responsible for. So Citrix only updates the parts in the cloud. If you choose to put storefront on-prem, then you're now responsible for keeping it up to date. Someone had asked that question.
Correct, and that's where we're talking about here, where you can use the lifecycle management piece to where that you can always do to make sure your maintenance for on-prem pieces or if you deploy another cloud outside of Workspace Cloud, those things, you can use their blueprints and their agents and so forth to make sure that you're updating stuff automatically through that orchestration. And that's something we'll talk about later on inside of our content here.
Okay. All right, guys, thanks.
So, and here also we wanted to mention that, you know, Citrix, because they're owning the control plane, they're going to continue to add things. So there's 5 main things that they're showing today, or they're delivering through the control plane, which is, you know, the mobility, the desktop applications, the secure browser, the CLM, then the labs that they're releasing to everything new they're coming up with, they're putting on the lab side so we can all test it. And the next 4 ones that we're seeing is, you know, the app onboarding, which is based on app DNA. You know, we have the network delivery to basically do the net scaler on their side of the house, intelligent automation, and third-party services. So obviously, intelligent automation, it will be based on Octoblue and all the automation that you can get out of it. But, you know, they will continue to add services. So when you subscribe to the service, you're going to get advantages of all the new things that are coming to the mix.
Yeah, and just to add too, for, you know, because I'm answering some questions here in the chat as well. For those of you still trying to wrap around the whole adding features, the evergreen up to date, I always tell customers, compare it to how ShareFile is, right? That ShareFile control plane is kind of the model for Workspace Cloud, because with ShareFile, they're always maintaining that control plane, adding features. They find a problem, they fix it. They need to, you know, patch something or fix something, they just do it. But then you still control the on-prem pieces. So if you use ShareFile and how that control plane is in the cloud, but you have, you know, your storage zones on-prem, your clients out there, you know, that same model, that's kind of the template for Workspace Cloud. Is with, you know, XenApp XenDesktop and XenMobile is the whole ShareFile model.
And somebody else asked a question very interesting about, you know, what is the difference of using, you know, the cloud connector that we install on Citrix, on a Windows server versus a VPC tunnel over VPN. So that's one of the main reasons. You do not need a VPN tunnel to your AWS environment for this to work. You know, by having the connector, the Workspace Cloud connector, and having a net scaler, you can actually have the whole environment ready. And we have that demo. We will show you that demo if we have time, for you to see that, you know, you don't need to create an on-prem VPN or a VPC tunnel anymore. Everything goes through the cloud connector.
Yeah, so what happens is you install the cloud connector on-prem, and then it'll ask you for credentials, and you use the credentials that you use to log into your Workspace Cloud instance, and by those credentials, that's how it ties into your Workspace Cloud instance deployed in there. That way, you have that SSL connection directly to your instance of your deployed Workspace Cloud.
Guys, one of the other questions that has come up here is the delivery controllers that you're getting out of the subscription. Are those dedicated delivery controllers, or are you just an instance within a single virtual machine shared with other people?
So they are. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So they are individually connected, and they are, because you use, obviously you don't want to have a single cloud connector. Your cloud connector will, and that's what I said, is it's kind of an STA delivery controller, because when you configure your delivery controller, that you point to your own environment. You won't see anybody else's environment. It's that instance is dedicated to you, and you will leverage through the cloud connector your resources in-house. So you're not sharing delivery controllers with a bunch of people.
So everybody gets their own dedicated virtual instance for their delivery controller. So there's a lot of companies that have, you know, certification compliance things that they can't be multi-hosted with anybody. So just to confirm, so everyone gets their own virtual delivery controller operating system VM. So we're not multi-tenancy within the single delivery controller, right?
Correct, and you actually don't VPN into you don't RDP into a server. What you get is basically a publish. We have actually a screenshot of that, and, you know, if we have time, we can demo it. You get when you connect to your studio, what you have is, you know, within your cloud Workspace Cloud, when you log in, you get that HTML5 studio where you manage all your environment, and you see your delivery controllers, you see your cloud connector. So what you're doing is your studio is pointing to your cloud connectors. And that's how your delivery controllers are talking. The cloud delivery controllers are talking to your cloud connectors on-prem, and that's the way that you're delivering your your resources, and you actually change your resources from pointing to delivery controllers on-prem to the cloud connector. So on the demo, which definitely not going to have time for that today, I can show you how a on-prem environment can very easily be changed to a workspace cloud just by going into the registry and changing what's your delivery controller. And just by doing that and pointing to your cloud connector, you're now using Workspace Cloud. So you don't have to go and do a big re-architecture or go and big redeployment of your workspace. Of your resources. It's a very simple change.
And just to be clear, we'll go as long as you and Jarian have time for it and people are willing to hold on to. So if we get to the demo, if you have time, we'll do it. I'm in no hurry. So I know a lot of people join this webinar to really learn more about integrating with AWS and Azure, not just Workspace Cloud. Are we going to jump into more talk around how we build a Citrix environment specifically on our own in AWS?
Yep, we're definitely. That's what we're heading to. So let's jump a little bit around, and I think, Jarian, this is a good thing for everybody kind of talk about what do we have and how does the thing work. So today, basically, your workspace, your administrator will log into the workspace, cloud control center. The control center will talk to your on-prem resources. You're then going to deploy a cloud connector, whatever that resource is. It can be AWS or can be your own data center. Then, the resources will be, obviously inside of your resource location. You can add other services like the mobility part, like the files and synchronization, share file type of house, and then your users will consume those resources by talking to your workspace cloud. And that's how, then, through the NetScaler will eventually access your applications on your desktop. So that's kind of the flow of how things will work here. And how the users consume this is through, workspaces. Workspaces are basically a group of services that are basically part of subdivision of the services that we get and are presented to the user on a matter that they can consume. So this is kind of the concept of what's my workspace. So my workspace is a group of services that are presented to my subscribers, and the users can subscribe to them automatically.
Okay, so instead of using Workspace Cloud, I can go to Amazon and get my own workspace and then build my own Citrix environment within that?
Correct, and that's the part. Yeah, and that's part of what we talk about with flexibility. With lifecycle management, which is one of the components of Workspace Cloud, you can automate the delivery of the provisioning of that. And that's exactly what we did for the demo. For the demo, we went and, we have a Workspace Cloud, and then we have lifecycle management, and we said, let's deploy the blueprint. And the blueprint went ahead, and we're going to talk about this really, really quick. Here, this is a screenshot we wanted to share of how your, Citrix Studio on the cloud will look like. As you can see by this icon, it's an HTML embedded frame on your Workspace Cloud subscription, where you can point to your different resources, delivery controllers, so on and so forth. So it doesn't look any different from what you have today. Maybe a little, but not a bunch. Let's jump around a little bit more and talk about the flexibility of lifecycle management. Lifecycle management, it was a standalone component of Citrix, services, and now it has been incorporated, into the lifecycle management, into the CUGC part, and it has four major components, right? You want to design, deploy, and then manage and update. Keep it upgraded, keep it updated. You design by creating blueprints. That's your day zero. You're going to see how your application works, how the application do. Then you deploy it, and after that, you manage your environment. And your deployment can go anywhere, and we'll look into that. Jarian, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so I was answering questions inside of the chat window here. So there's some questions here. I just want to address those real quick. So does the connector provision local resources through MCS or PVS? Yes. Like we know, MCS is built into the controllers, so there's no extra infrastructure needed. So we will deploy MCS on-prem. If you need to do PVS, you have to deploy your own local PVS infrastructure on-prem to use PVS with Workspace Cloud. There is no PVS Workspace Cloud today. So you can use either or. It just depends on what you want to use in the infrastructure requirements. As far as architecture requirements for the connector, it can be in the DMZ. The main thing is that it's allowed to talk outbound on 443 SSL out to the Workspace Cloud control plane, and there's some information out there on the different domains for Citrix that needs to talk to outbound for that. As far as the Windows 7 with PV disk and that kind of stuff, so Workspace Cloud is going to support all the same features that we see today in traditional on-prem deployments inside of XenApp XenDesktop. Another comment to here is also is that with Workspace Cloud, it is a service from Citrix, so you do subscribe to it. There is a user per month and a minimum user requirement, and this will replace what you buy today for your traditional on-prem licenses and your yearly maintenance. You would transition to this model to where it's like Office 365, where you pay per month per user, and that cost is going to vary depending on your features that you want inside the service. And there also is a minimum requirement as well for the number of users also.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Jarian. You will be stopping to buy and pay maintenance or buy perpetual licensing and moving into an Office 365 model when you go down this route. Lifecycle management is the tool that I'm most excited about this, because it's a tool that allows us to create and repeat the environment over and over again multiple times really fast. And I'm perfectly honest, it's built to create anything, not only your XenApp or XenDesktop or XenMobile environment, but also you can build the scripts to create, to automate an SAP installation or a Hadoop installation. And they're already on the partner blueprints, blueprints for Sangari or Lakeside Software. Those already exist, so you can take it from the already built catalog and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to deploy Sangari on my on-prem environment. Just go to CWC, go to Lifecycle Management, and select the blueprint for Sangari, and it does the automatic installation for you. And that's part of the demo that we're going to show you guys today. So it's a very robust offering from Citrix. It's been out for a while now, and I like it quite a bit. The the Lifecycle Management.
And another thing to point out too is that you can have Workspace Cloud and deploy the on-prem workloads using Lifecycle Management. You can not have Lifecycle Management, you can not have Workspace Cloud and just get Lifecycle Management and use that to deploy and orchestrate everything on-prem or any other cloud outside of Workspace Cloud as well. So you can use them together or separately, just to clarify that.
Guys, you've mentioned the demo several times. Maybe that's what we need to do next. We've got about 10 minutes left. Is 10, 15 minutes enough time to show everybody what, just get them excited about it and show them what you guys are doing with AWS and Workspace Cloud?
Sure. I guess the one thing that we want to talk about is, we're talking about a lot of agents and a lot of connectors. Well, CLM also has a connector. CLM has a when you do it on-prem, and that's how you can do it separate. You can do Workspace Cloud with CLM or without CLM. You can do CLM with or without Workspace Cloud, and it's because CLM, Citrix Lifecycle Management, has their own connector that actually deploys an agent on each individual server on your environment, to make sure that it can talk back to, the control plane, because CLM not only does deployment, it keeps monitoring, it keeps alerting of your environment, so it knows what's up, what's down, and, it also helps you to create and delete things. So that's something we want to make sure that you guys have on your, on your tips tip of your fingers, is that, there's another agent, not to be confused with the CWC connector, is the CLM connector.
Yeah, one thing I like to see with Citrix going forward is that we have the CLM connector, the CWC connector, ShareFile's got its own pieces to connect up to the ShareFile control plane. The mobile cloud deployment has its own thing. We'd like to see all this combined, and this is just me talking here. This is what I'd like to see from this offering, is everything combined into a single agent to deploy on-prem instead of having to do multiple ones on-prem, depending on the service you're using.
That's interesting. I didn't realize Citrix Lifecycle Manager was its own product outside of Citrix Workspace Cloud. So that could be valuable for people who aren't going to use Workspace Cloud but would like to have the Lifecycle Manager part.
Correct, and that's actually how I've been deploying all my labs, at on-prem or AWS. I've just been using Lifecycle Management. I have not been using a lot of CWC, but I've been using the heck out of Lifecycle Manager because it allows me to make to create environment the same way time and time again. And for example, I'm deploying an AWS, so I don't want to be consuming the resources when I don't have to use it. So I go and deploy, and when I'm done with my demo, I go and I tear down. So I don't keep paying AWS for things that I don't need. And that's what I do. I go to the lifecycle management, I add a resource location, which can be anywhere. Then I deploy it. I choose what blueprint I'm going to deploy. I deploy it, and I keep an eye on it, and then I tear it down. Now, there's a new feature coming down that Jerry and I are very excited about. Sorry, my mouse is acting up here, which is the automation on So some screenshots on things that we can do on the monitoring. You can check and see what's your CPU utilization, your memory utilization. But now they're coming out with, smart scale, which basically, using the same principle, the same CWC concept, it allows you to actually bring things up and down, create and delete, provision or deprovision servers on demand, depending on all sorts of criteria, what time of the day it is, or how many concurrent connections do I have? Do I need more or less resources? So it can actually do that, and you can set it up and create the schedules based on a lot of different things, delivery groups, and bring things up and down. So we're very excited about Smart Scale. It's something that we got a demo here recently. And it allows, people like myself or people that are thinking to put this on public clouds that only want to pay for the resources they really need, is to do it this way, because you can bring things up and down.
And now that's not just scheduling it on days for the day and the hours, but can you also do that, for weeks and months or something like that? I mean, obviously my situation would be that in a university area to where you have summer where obviously the need goes way down. And then it ramps back up in the fall again. That kind of thing would be perfect for our kind of situation.
The scheduling can be done based on load, not even days. So if my environment load is 45%, give me another 10. When it gets to 50, give me another 20. It can be done based on load. And you can say, hey, I have different groups, delivery groups, so you can see here. So this delivery group, I'm going to need 5 more. This other delivery group, I'm going to need 20 more, because I know I have different type of users coming in. So it can be done on load, not only on time.
Okay, so you set it on. It's set on some kind of other criteria that triggers the adding on and dropping off of those servers. Then.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yep. And we didn't want to. We definitely want to talk about that. On the other service, you want to talk about this one, Jerry?
Oh yeah, too. So I'm answering questions again in the chat window. So the upgrade servers, you might have seen this before. This has been talked about, at Synergy in the past before as well. But basically, this is a blueprint using lifecycle management to take your existing XenApp 6x farm and migrate that to a newer version. So it's going to go through with a blueprint to walk you through to do that transition process to upgrade to newer versions of XenApp XenDesktop.
One question I saw a couple of times is which hypervisor lifecycle management work with? Hyper-V, XenServer, XenServer, Hyper-V, VMware, AWS, Azure, and I think KVM from Nutanix is coming down. That's good to know. So that's kind of the lifecycle management story, right? So what else do we want to cover in the presentation part, or are we to a point where you guys are comfortable showing us your demo? Yep, I think we can. We have a few resources here that are available for people to read about deploying these using CWC and CLM from some people. So we can obviously post this around for people to see. And if you want, I can switch out. Let me see what happened here. Let me know, guys. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me go. Let me go here and go maximize this. Okay. So let's see.
Eduardo, are you going to you're going to show us basically what?
I'm going to give you guys a quick demo of, deploying an environment. So I'm getting ready here, sorry. Deploying an environment on AWS through CLM.
So you have Citrix Workspace Cloud already stood up. You've already you have Lifecycle Manager up, and you already have a private Amazon AWS zone or environment to connect to, right?
Yeah, we have those things. We exactly. We're gonna. Can you see my browser page right now?
Yeah, with the Citrix Workspace Cloud.
Yep.
At the top. Yep.
So basically, this is the main website where you go, the main page. Once you get in here, you can do the application and services and why not. We're going to concentrate right now on lifecycle management. So we're going to click on manage, and then we're going to see. We actually deployed one last night for today's demo. Here's where you have the different resources, and here's where you create your connection. So basically, if you have, you can add a resource location that can be any of these guys, on-prem, Hyper-V, on-prem, Sun Server, vSphere, or any cloud platform provider or Amazon website services. You do need to have some things, handily, like you define a name, whatever you want, and then you need for AWS, you need your access key and secret share key. It's very important that from a preparation perspective for any deployments with CW. With CLM, you're going to have, for example, on Amazon, your identity management ready. You're going to have your secure your access key and secret access key downloaded, so you can create your resource location. So we're not going to create that for now. Then here's the list of blueprints that you have access to. So, and it will give you a lot of information, very detailed. For example, this is a XenApp XenDesktop with SQL Express if you want to deploy it, or a XenApp XenDesktop without SQL. This will, when you go and you actually click on the info, you're going to see everything that it does. So, for example, this one is going to come here, is going to create a staging server, is going to create a primary SQL server and a secondary, and then a witness, a delivery controller, a couple of those storefront, a licensing server, and then provisioning services if you want to. So that's at the level of detail of a blueprint. If you want just to go back and use one of the you already have SQL, you don't want to deploy your SQL, you're gonna select the one you want, and all you do is hey, these are the Citrix provider. These are components that partners have given to the community. Citrix partners, we talk about Lakeside, we talk about Zangati, and these are created blueprints that anybody can consume and share. And in order to use it, all you have to do is come here and say, hey, I want that to be added to my library, and now you have a new blueprint that you can use and you can access. So then you come to design and deploy it, and you can modify them if you want, because when you add it to your library, they're basically yours, and you can make any changes you want to the blueprint. And I know we don't have a lot of time here, but basically what you will do is, for example, this is the one I use quite a few times, is XenApp and XenDesktop proof of concept. So I want to use that one. Let's take a quick look at this one. You come and you review that, and it will tell you all the steps that you want into it. So this basically creates a SQL Express database, a XenDesktop controller, Citrix Studio, storefront licensing server, and deploys a number of VDA servers that you will use for resources. So the only thing that we're missing here is the NetScaler. You have to have it pre-configured, but you can actually inject the access gateway. All you have to have is for it to be available. So I can then come here and say, yes, you know what, I want to see the steps one by one, and has a graphical interface. So one of the things that I have mentioned to Citrix gazillion times is I don't see this as a blueprint, because as a blueprint for me, it's more like a VCU type of diagram. This is more like a recipe. This is more like, hey, these are my steps. You go back and forth. It can be in Python. It can be in a lot of different VBScript, PowerShell, different languages. And the way that it looks for me is more like a recipe or a script, if you want, a DR script that you go and execute things in order so you know what's happening. So once you have, review, and this is definitely what I want, I'm going to deploy it. So perfect. Let's start a deployment of this setup. And I am not paying attention to the screen, so if you guys have any questions, let me know. You're going to name it.
So Eduardo, you're using Lifecycle Manager to deploy a new environment in conjunction with Citrix Workspace Cloud.
Correct.
Okay.
This one will be, because the one I'm picking, it will be all on quote unquote on-prem. This will be a full valid environment on AWS that I can then take the CWC part and take over the VDAs and stop using the pre-deployed delivery controllers if I want to. So first, I'm going to just deploy the full-blown Citrix environment. Let's say you don't have the CWC apps and desktops, because that's the other thing. CWC is the umbrella name. You have to sign up, and that was part of the presentation we didn't see. Is you have to sign up for the different resources like apps on desktops or shared files or, in this case, CLM. So let's assume that we don't have CWC apps on desktops. I'm only paying for lifecycle management. So I'm going to deploy it. The deployment profile, which in this case is something I usually do a lot, is, if I'm doing the same deployment over and over again, I can pre-save the profile and just do next, and then everything is created for me. In this case, I'm not going to do that, so we can actually go through the different steps. I'm going to say, hey, where do I want to put this on? I can have it on any of the resources that I can use. In my on-prem, if I have a CLM connector, or I can do it on AWS through the APIs, and that's why Azure or, of course, patches come time. Remind me later. That's why Microsoft Azure or AWS do not need a connector, is because the APIs to create things are already open. So that's why you don't need that. So we're going to select AWS as my cloud, and I'm going to say, okay, do I want to configure NetScaler, yes or no? I'm going to say this, this time I'm not going to configure it. I'm just going to hit it next. Okay, let's scale this up. Okay, it's going to tell me this is my pre-checklist. So I'm going to create a minimum of 3 servers with these names. These are actually, because I selected AWS, is presenting me with the image that we're going to use. If we were selecting Azure, it will present a whole different image based on the image schema that Microsoft presents to the users when you're creating a new server. So I'm like, yeah, I like all that. I can actually also take all the steps that I'm going to do next. I can download them as a CSV, enter it on an Excel spreadsheet, save it as a file, and always import it back. So I don't have to type anything if I don't want to. Yes, sir.
Eduardo, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Just something logistical. So I know we've reached the end of our time. I know people have to drop off some, but you're welcome to stay. We're going to keep talking for a little while. If you have questions or you want to comment on this event later, you can go off to the CUGC website, and you can continue to post and ask questions. There'll be a thread running out there. So if you have to drop off, we understand, but there's a place to continue the conversation out on the CUGC portal.
Robert, to your question of what level of access is needed in AWS, on those links that we have, and I'm going to post it here on the chat for everybody, we have a pre-list of requirements. I hate to do this, but let me show you here. If you go to mollycup.com, because that was something that it's not very well described, but if you go there and there is a link for AWS deploying, you can actually here see you're preparing for AWS account for CLM and tell you what exactly you need to do in order to get this working. Create your IAM, create your private keys, create your users, and set up, EC2 full access on Amazon VPC full access. Just to answer your question, Robert, about what is needed to actually make this work. And, I honestly have like another 10 minutes and then I have to drop, but I think we can definitely have this completed, the demo in less than 10 minutes for everybody that wants to stick around. So here, we're going to do 1 domain controller, we're going to do 1 delivery controller, we can do 2, 3, 4, as many VDAs as we want to. As you can see, also my delivery controller is working as, is a member of the domain. It has licensing and all the components running on it. So where do I want to put my delivery controller? I'm just going to put it on the same location that I just defined. And here's going to ask me a very few questions. So for somebody that asks, hey, can I define where do I want to put things? You start defining right here. Where do you want to put your different pieces of the environment? I picked the region, so I picked Virginia. Then the image, you're confirming that the image that the blueprint has is the one that you want. You're going to name your VMs. You know, in this case, I'm going to call it live XenApp, and I'm going to, you know, do I want to put it in an existing VPC or do I want to create a new VPC? So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to create a new VPC. I'm going to call it live demo VPC. And the rest of the thing are pre-populated. I already have a key pair, obviously, that is needed on any AWS deployment, so you can actually retrieve passwords for your servers. So I hit create VPC. You can, if you have a predefined VPC on your environment, you can definitely take it from there. Okay, a number of VPC maximum has been reached. Yeah, no kidding. Let me see here. No, of course. Well, so let's go back and pick an existing one. So I'm going to pick but you can create your own, and that's the idea here. And we have a private and a public. We're going to put everything on the private subnet for now. We're going to do next. Again, you select your key for password management. Whether or not you want Elastic IP for this specific server, we don't want to because it's an internal server. So, and then it's going to save everything on, must be running. Yeah, God, of course. Yeah, so let me go back. I'm going to have to quickly delete. Beautiful. I didn't completely delete my VPCs before, so I'm just going to come here and let me do that really quick. VPCs, you can only have 5 by default. Let me see if I can.
Good. Eduardo, can you just real quickly tell me what a VPC is?
So we had that. A VPC is basically within your AWS account. It's a way to segment or a way to isolate it to not be interfering with any of your other workloads. So you can call it as a VLAN. It's not a VLAN, but it is a way of grouping servers for a single service.
Okay. So it's a resource grouping within AWS.
Kind of, yes, sir. And of course, I'm not going to be able. Yeah, let's delete this test VPC. Let me see if I can delete that now. That's fantastic. This one is deleted. So I'm going to be able to finish with this deployment. Let me go back. Real quick. Next. Yep, next. There you go. Now I'm going to do a refresh. That should be going here, going away. Fantastic. So now that VPC doesn't exist anymore, so I can create a new one. Well, you guys definitely know now that this is a live demo VPC. And I'm going to select the key pair, create a VPC. Now, this one, we call it live VPC. If I go start refreshing, you will see how this live VPC just got created. So since everything works through the CLM, now I have everything created. I'm going to do next. Yep, that's what I need. No Elastic IP. And so experience reach the internet. Oh, fantastic. Still not completed, still not ready, the VPC. So the VPC, when it's created, it actually creates a server. I'm going too fast for the demo. It creates a NATing environment. It created a bastion host, which is where the CLM connector happens. Let's see here. Still creating that one. Oh, sorry, wrong window. Let's pick that one up.
So I can ask a question that came up earlier. Citrix Lifecycle Manager, what is it included with all your XenApp XenDesktop licenses? I assume there's a subscription version of it as well, but does everybody who owns Citrix XenDesktop own Lifecycle Manager?
So there is a piece that you get a subscription for deploy, and that allows you to just do the blueprints that are already published out there, so you can't do anything custom. Now, if you want to do like management after the fact or custom blueprints or those type of things, you have to buy an upgraded subscription for that.
Okay.
So now I click next, and it's going to start creating. I'm running low on resources on my VPC, but basically, you're going to start creating. Here, the next thing is just do deployed, and you will see how the things get deployed. So let's not waste a lot more time. And at the end, what you will see is all the steps that it happened. Let me show you the one we deployed yesterday. We call it Demo Lab. Let me go back to it. And it basically, what it has is, as you can see here, it comes here and creates a VDA environment. I'm going to highlight all the ones that created. The Citrix NAT instance has how it talks to the inside of it. And we actually created a NetScaler demo to connect to it. But as you can see here, the demo lab completed. You can go and get the report of what happened. And then you can actually start doing your monitoring as we talk about, right? We monitor this. We can see all my different servers, how my CPU is doing, how my RAM is doing, the delivery controller side of the house, same thing, CPU, memory utilization, disk utilization. And again, it's fully available. The NetScaler was pre-configured by us. We just connected to it, as you will do. And actually, if you go here and we go to HTTPS ugw.mollycup.com. This is a NetScaler running. This is a full Citrix environment running on AWS. Administrator.
Eduardo and Jarian, there's a bunch of stuff that's probably happened behind the scenes here to get ready for this demo, right? Would it be possible someday to have one of you guys or both you guys kind of to spend a day and kind of walk people through what it would take to do all the back end pieces to be able to build out a Citrix environment in AWS? Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, and as you can see, yeah, definitely, Andy, we definitely would be. I'll be more than happy to do that. As you can see now, this NetScaler, this name is hosted on AWS, connecting to a published desktop, that is also hosted, as you can see by the name, on AWS. On these servers, XZPOC is this server that we're connecting here. And so it's a full-blown environment connected.
Hey, Eduardo, I'm so sorry. I have to be the evil timekeeper lady and just say that we have about 2 or 3 more minutes. So we should probably start wrapping up. How close are you?
Yeah, but I think, we're reaching to the point that's what we wanted to show is, at the end, we're running a full-blown environment that is, everything that is highlighted there. It's deployed by CLM. The only thing that we deployed manually was the NetScaler, and now we're connected. This web storefront is running inside the AWS, and this is a AWS hosted Citrix environment with all the same features that you will get out of any environment. You can still go here and doesn't look any different that what you will do today.
I think that's the thing I was bringing up to Jarian, right, is that there's a lot of things going on here, and it's amazing that you can spin up an environment like that. And it'd be great to get you guys back on and have you maybe walk us through building out the AWS environment to get ready for what you did there, and then have another conversation specifically around how to get AWS and Azure, one or the other, up and running to the point where people could integrate with Citrix, including that NetScaler. You made a comment a minute ago about having NetScaler in there. And, I'm sure people would love to see how you did that.
Yep. Yeah, and this environment to deploy, just to kind of give you an idea, for those 3 servers through the CLM script, it took about 2.5 hours, and then it was ready. But one of the big features is, we talk about the scale and redundancy, failover, but you can just come here and do tear down, and hit tear down now, and it will take everything away and destroy it for you automatically. So you can do this demo, and I can just go at the end of this demo here, tear down, and it will go and deprovision everything on your AWS account. So it's an easy way for us to do demos or test new features, right? Right now this is based on 7.x, but 7.7, sorry. That's the blueprint that we deployed, but it's there, it's available for you. This is a video that is running on AWS.
guys, I think we're out of time, and the question around pricing came up a couple of times, and we're all technical guys on the phone here, so I don't know that we're going to be able to answer the pricing question. And I'll take an action item to follow up with the CUGC group and see if we can't work with you two guys to maybe walk through a half-day session or a day session, whatever makes sense to help people understand how to spin up the back-end components. But do you have any? I know one of the answers around the pricing around this right now. It's all subscription-based. Do you guys have any idea what the pricing is for Citrix Workspace Cloud?
You should definitely work with your Citrix, solutions provider, with your advisor. This is the publicly available price that you can find on Citrix website. If everybody's seeing my screen, this is a different packaging. As you can see, you can, deploy this included with any. If you are a customer paying software maintenance today, you can do the deploying. You can take one of the existing blueprints that are publicly available on CLM and deploy it. That's today. If you want to design your own, keep on monitoring, send alerts, then there's a fee, and so on and so forth. And so these are kind of the prices that are publicly available today.
Also, too, just a note too as well. It's going to these per seat they're showing. It says based on a 3-year term. Also, too, the price is going to depend on what your ELA level is with Citrix as well. So this is just the suggested pricing, but it all depends on the size of your environment and what you have today for your discounts and so forth.
Okay, yeah, that's a great slide there.
Yeah, we tried to remove that, but we kept a couple of slides in the back pocket in case questions like this came up.
Okay. Well, I'm sure people are going to have questions, and we'll keep the conversation going over on the CUGC portal. But guys, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really busy guys, both of you. Probably leave it like this. Jarian, let's start with you. Where can people, if people want to talk to you, if people want to catch up, if people want to hire you, right? I know you're an independent consultant. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, at Jarian Gibson. My website, which is going to begin an overhaul here pretty soon. I've just been so busy since I went independent that I had time to do it. But JarianGibson.com, and then also you can email me Jarian@JarianGibson.com as well. So any questions or anything, follow up, whatever you guys need, just go ahead and reach out. You can also find me in the Citrix IRC channel from time to time, and also in the Citrix forums as well.
Okay. And so I'll just add on to that. If you want to work with Jarian, you better call him quick because he's a busy guy and he's a very well sought after Citrix consultant and awesome guy to work with. Eduardo, where can people find you?
Guys, you see I'm available on Twitter at mollycup.com. Also my website, www.mollycup.com. Or you can email me at, eduardo@mollycup.com. Make it super simple, the same for everything. And we can help you trying to navigate this. It's not been clear path. I will say that the Citrix documentation is pretty good, but there's always some gotchas on how to do things.
Okay. Well, hey guys, we're out of time, but I really appreciate it. We always run long. There's a handful of questions left that hopefully can be asked over in the CUGC portal. But I really appreciate your time, and as usual, you guys are always full of great knowledge. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's good stuff, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
all. Right,
all.
and thanks everyone for joining.
Go ahead, Andy. Do you have something else to say?
Thank you, Andy, for having us, and thank you, Jarian and Bob.
I was just going to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. We had a lot of people hang on till the end, so it must have been decent information,
yeah.
And maybe we'll have a round 2 of this at some point.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was great.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys.